Again, welcome to Saturday Afternoon Poetry. Today we have two featured poets, two wonderful featured poets, followed by love. That'll be coming afterwards, of course. So we start off with our first featured poet. I turn it over to Barry Vitkov.
Thank you. Um, I have poems. I have three different poetry collections that have been published by Finishing Line Press. And the most recent is, and there I am, my 13-year-old self, called the Boychik Poems. Boychik is Yiddish for young man. And that's my bar mitzvah picture. So these poems, this small chapbook were poems all about growing up Jewish, being Jewish, some reflections on current state of affairs. And I'll read a few poems from this book, and then I'll read a couple of poems from two of my other books. My collection begins with this epigraph. It's a Yiddish proverb, and it says, "Words should be weighed, not counted." Um, this first poem is called Orange Groves in Israel. Um, I have to take a look here to see if there are any words I should explain ahead of time. I don't think so. Um, there's a tradition growing up Jewish where your parents or your grandparents, usually your grandparents or your great grandparents, in my case, would buy a tree for every special occasion in Israel, a fruit tree. And as this poem tries to recount, it's some of those memories and also the connection between words and fruit. So this is called Orange Groves in Israel. Orange groves in Israel. My grandparents donated trees for every special occasion: circumcisions, birthdays, anniversaries, bar mitzvahs. When Kennedy became president, the moon landing. You'll visit one day, say shalom to your forest of fruit. And they bought Israeli bonds at the Bank of America on Irving Street whenever they could accumulate $25 or $50. Redeem them for college, no car, nothing frivolous. Citrus and scholarship, recipe for a meaningful life. Jews have a long tradition with fruit and words, and long arguments over their meaning and importance. When my Aunt Sylvia left one shul to join another because one excluded and not the other, it might be said it was over oranges, a symbol of a more inclusive community where segments make a whole, where the sweetness of humanity is ascribed in its words. This poem recounts my bar mitzvah after party. Oh, I forgot to set my timer here. Well, yeah, I'm probably on a timer. Um, it's got some truth and it's got some fiction. My bar mitzvah after party. My father, grandfather, and great grandfather, in their finest dark suits and serious faces, taking turns chanting their aliyot, while all I want is survival and approbation. When it's done, the Torah, paraded, kissed, and placed back in the ark beneath an eternal flame, the whole mishpucha returns to our home where mother, grandmother, great grandmother have laid the table with meats and sweets. Before eating, shot glasses are filled, a toast made to my becoming a man, while I collect envelopes filled with gelt and received hugs from bosomy perfumed aunts that go on a little too long, handshakes and mazel tov from uncles who smile with secrets I'll never know. My family celebrates with stories, advice, off-color humor, reminders of anti-Semitism, the purchase of Israeli bonds and trees, and the mandate of education regardless of motivation. Nothing is more important than whispered admonition. The party goes on with too much wine and whiskey for one uncle who's removed to the back patio by his brothers and hosed down to soaked sobriety. The most lasting memory for a newly minted man is a drenched uncle at the after party. When I was 3 or 4 years old, I lived off of Fillmore Street in San Francisco at my great grandfather's apartment house. It was the only place my parents could afford at the time. It was 1950, and it was a one room apartment. It was a studio apartment with a Murphy bed that my parents slept in. I slept on a cot in the kitchen, and my youngest sister at the time slept in a drawer. She was an infant. And I used to play with this little redheaded girl on the back steps, and and I'll always remember Annie. I don't know why. She was older than I, and I'll always remember her. She had numbers on her arm from the Holocaust. This poem is called A Redheaded Girl. Born at a time to wonder about the numbers on her arm, too young to ask about memories, when we played on the steps of my great grandfather's apartment house. Your redheaded joy never hinting at the brutality you survived. You survived for all of us to carry a historical burden not understood as a child, felt deeply as an adult, responsible to know and share over and over and over inward and outward sensibilities. Because freckled girls and curly haired boys may never laugh together again, but need to make sure their children do without numbers on their arms. And that's my son calling. Okay. Um, Let me do, how am I doing with time right now, Don?
Doing very well, sir.
Okay. When I was a kid, I played a lot of basketball. It was my salvation from a family that I didn't particularly want to be around most of the time. And and there were Jewish basketball players, Red Holtzman, Dolph Schayes, Larry Brown. I looked up to them because Jews didn't make it in a lot of sports. Um, but Jews played a very prominent role in New York and Brooklyn area in the 30s and 40s. They dominated the basketball scene. Sabe Apperstein came out of that to create the Harlem Globetrotters. And there was a book that was written, and I can't remember the author's name. It was called Jew Ball, about those basketball leagues. It was a fictionalized version. So I wrote a poem called Jew Ball, and here's my Jew Ball poem. At first, my fingers lacked strength and stability, exactly like my family. But my Spalding basketball comforted me all summer long. A leather sphere with nubby surface, smells of salty sweat, grime, and blacktop, the rhythmic sounds of bounce, the skid of sneakers, not knowing what would be there when I returned home. So on the hardtop I remained, from morning mist till sunset, wearing out the soles of black Converse high tops, repaired with cast-off baseball cards wrapped in aluminum foil, fitted between threadbare socks and the evidence of pivots and push-offs. I played alone with fantasies of Coach Holzman, Shea's dominance, Brown's mastery of the game. Then one-on-one horse, three-on-three, half-court, full-court pickup games. Winners remain, losers hoping to regain pride and esteem, lost on the court as good sports, yet more often without dignity in loud suburban houses. We grew taller, learned new skills, between the legs dribbles, when the chest or bounce pass, pick and roll, weak side significance, rebound position, with elbows and shimmy hips, reverse layups, scoring at will with a deep, high arching shot from the corner, especially from the corners, escaping a double team when leaving home, elevating for a dunk with funk, sometimes a tip in for the win, eventually spinning the basketball on my fingertip like a winner's trophy, straight, strong, and sustained, strutting around without a thought about what awaits after the game. Thanks. The last poem I'll read from this collection is when I turned 70 8 years ago. I celebrated by going to Israel and meeting 22 cousins I had never met before, and one cousin I did know from previous time. I spent a month there. My wife said, "You go." She didn't want to go. And get to know your family back there and find out what you find out. It was an incredible trip of a lifetime. And I had an interesting cab ride when I was in Jerusalem. And this poem is called Dirt. In a cab, the Arab driver asks, "Where are you from?" "America." "Are you a Jew?" "Yes," I respond. "May I ride in your cab?" "Of course, welcome." He shows me pictures of his wife and children with the pride of any family man. He drops me off at Yad Vashem, where I cry in remembrance. Whose soil washed upon these Middle Eastern shores? Was the Mediterranean playing a cruel hoax? Or the Jordan River leading to a dying Dead Sea where allegedly holy acts took place? This land, a crossroads for commerce and debated truths for thousands of years, millions and millions of countless tears. When I visited Israel during a lull, the quarters of Jerusalem filled with the business of shops and living, meandering among ancient stone pathways, shofars, rosaries, prayer mats, pomegranates, the spicy scent of oxtail stew, hummus, and pita. Cultures kept their peaceful, separate ways, disparaging the cruelty of leaders who manipulate and slay for power and control. Taxis are safety nets, places where differences are shared like a scrapbook. I'm going to read one poem from a collection I wrote called Structures. And all these poems are structured poems. I have sonnets, villanelles, haiku, um, and other forms. And I'll read one poem from here. It's a sonnet I wrote to a friend who's well, an acquaintance of mine whose wife was pretty deep into her Alzheimer's, and it raised a lot of questions. So I wrote this sonnet for him. I shared it with him, and then I asked his permission to share it publicly, and he said, of course, and it ended up in this book. And it's called For an Acquaintance and His Wife with Alzheimer's. And since this month's theme is love, this includes love. Who are you to say I would not be there? After all these years, you still have some doubt that in the end, when the world seems unfair, you would be abandoned and left without someone knowing well your questions and fears. Although we've often talked of the unknown, with worry in our hearts and eyes with tears, we still don't understand being alone when being together was all we had planned. Then we were taken to a darker place where science and reason could not command answers to what we were forced to embrace, knowing faith is as tangible as hope, keeps alive our loving bonds as we cope. And that was, if you didn't know, that was written in a Shakespearean sonnet style. And then I guess this will be my last poem. I actually won an award for this poem. I can't, oh, the Oregon Poetry Association. It's called Gefilte Fish. I will assume you all know that gefilte fish is a fish cake. Jews love them. I love them. My wife hates them. She's not Jewish. She's Lutheran. Something went wrong in her past. I don't know. She doesn't like fish cakes. But my daughter-in-law, as it turns out, loves them. So gefilte fish. There are always a couple of jars of gefilte fish in the fridge and a couple of backup jars in the cupboard. I must alert my wife before opening one. She can't tolerate the smell. And the plate I use must be thoroughly rinsed before being placed in the dishwasher. I don't think it's about the plate holding kosher food, contaminating the other Christian dishes, at least I hope not. It seems that my son has inherited a distaste for this delicacy. He snickers when I have a couple smothered in horseradish. I prefer the red beet-colored horseradish over the white prepared variety, with a couple of dry matzahs on the side, which he enjoys with butter and jelly. But his Chinese girlfriend enthusiastically tried some, savoring it for some time before declaring it good. I think our cultures have quite a bit in common. I used to eat at a Chinese Muslim restaurant. The food was halal and close enough to kosher. I've never kept kosher, but enjoy the experience. I'm not a believer in myths. I rather cherish the secular results. And Moses is the most mentioned prophet in the Quran. Unfortunately, Abraham's choices cleaved two cultures. Families are strange sometimes. And Sandy, his former girlfriend, is now my daughter-in-law. So anyway, unless you want me to fill some more time, that's what I have to offer. So thank you.
Did fine, Barry. You're leaving them wanting more. That's what it's all about. And of
By
course,
the way,
just to
my books
underline
are
that
all,
point,
I was going to say my books are available from Finishing Line Press, and I also have a collection of short stories and a novella that they've published, and at the end of March they'll be publishing another collection of short stories. So
it's the
that's what I have.
first thing you did too quickly. I was about to introduce the idea of buying your books, and then you didn't
There
let
you
me
go.
finish.
I'm good
But
at that.
but your reading was nice and leisurely, so I really appreciate that. You were unhurried. It was wonderful. Okay, I'll say it again. Look in the chat. Information about buying Barry's book. Okay. Oops.
Thanks, Don.
All right, now for something completely different. Oh yes, Robbie Nestor.
Hi, are you going to introduce me or should I introduce myself?
You can introduce
Uh,
yourself, and I also
okay,
realized if you're doing a PowerPoint that I cannot give you the big screen like I did for Barry because the PowerPoint's going to take it up. Okay,
that's, yep, that's fine
it's okay. Okay,
because
go ahead.
I'm looking at the poems as
Go right
everyone
ahead.
else
Go
will
right
be
ahead then.
looking at
Okay.
the images. So you can go to the first image of Beth Moon's Flight of the Raven. Beth Moon is a photographer. She lives in San Francisco and she makes beautiful photographs of birds, trees, mostly ancient trees. They're really beautiful. This book is called About to Disappear, and I put it in the chat. And it from Bookshop. It's you can get it from Bookshop, so you can get it at any independent bookstore, or even if you ask Target, they can order it for you, or Costco, or wherever. But it's an ekphrastic collection, and for me, ekphrasis is not just interaction or inspiration by visual art, but interaction with any text, no matter what kind. And I have another book that's inspired by food documentaries on Netflix, in part. So I do a lot with the phrases. So this first poem is called Once a Raven. In another life, we flew together, sheltered in the boughs of ancient bristlecones, rich with seed. Our voices rose, loud and raucous, but that was long ago, almost beyond memory. From the ground, I watched the flocks assemble on the wires, the stunted eucalyptus, They call to one another in a tongue I no longer understand. Seeker of bright things, there is only one way back to harmony. With you at my back like a quiver, I become a corvid angel, hunting nothing but the sense of flight, intimate with clouds and wind. My human bones are clumsy, far too heavy for this feat, yet I rise unencumbered on borrowed wings, adept in ways forgotten long ago. The second poem is the image is also on the cover of my book, and it's got the same title as the poem Disquiet, and it's by a wonderful artist named Kylie Spar. And I really recommend that you look up her work because it's fascinating. Disquiet. On the ocean floor, sleeping groupers camouflage themselves as rocks, cocoon in clouds of sand and mucus spun out of the substance of their bodies as spiders' spinnerets let down a line of silk. I'm like that, like the whelk within its fortress of a shell, shielded in a vaporous swirl. It doubles as a dress of white chiffon, inverted parachute that spirals around my body like vanilla soft serve, ribbon of cream in coffee. When I feel threatened, the dress sets up its own internal wind and weather, swallows me whole. At the first sign of threat, it automatically inflates. I take flight on milky tides of moonbeams, streamers of phantom light. You can move to the next one, which is after Megan Ruthke's Wisdom in the Missouri. The Lives of a River. And I wrote this one for a journal called, um, gosh, what was the name of that journal? I think it's still around. The Leipzig Frastic. And they give you visual prompts. If they choose your poems, they assigned either a visual prompt from another person, from an artist who sent it in, or they assign your poem to that artist. The Mississippi and Amazon, the brown Missouri and Orinoco, the Susquehanna, whether sullied by smokestacks and fertilizer, reflecting the tallest buildings or the largest trees, frequented by long-legged herons or roseate spoonbills, by toxic waste or spring meadows. Each travels its own path, carves through mountains or crosses deserts, percolates down to limestone caverns, to the most hidden of aquifers, here narrowing to almost nothing, there swelling to a loud torrent, through branches and tributaries, confluence or delta, till it reaches the sea. Then it surrenders, becomes a single part of something much larger. But for a while, the river remains itself, sometimes recognizable in a tint or shade, a sound, a peculiar countercurrent underlying the ocean's larger surge, a chorus of hundreds of voices speaking at once. For that small time, the river remains as particular as the pattern of hand-woven cloth, or the split skin of the anaconda, still bearing the snake's sightless sockets, draped whole from a branch, or fallen in shreds to the ground, the muscle gone out of it. We can still trace the corners of the flexible jaws, capable of taking in prey bigger around than the snake itself. The sea, too, is like this, accepting the place where all of us begin and end. Next. This is a really interesting, comes from a book of photographs by Nick Brandt of animals that are petrified um, at Lake Natron in northern Tanzania, which sits next to a volcano that poisons the water. Flamingo in Lake Natron, northern Tanzania. From above, the lake seems a kind of paradise, the breeding ground of many migratory birds. Already, flocks dot the shore, yet the water teems with hundreds of fallen birds looking for a place to stretch and preen. Those lured by the mirror of the lake's red water, so bright it's visible from space, will die in this runoff from the volcano, Old Doña Lenga. Their feathers harden into clumps of brittle string, flattened winter weeds. Their wings lie heavy, will never feel the touch of air again. The hollow reeds that were their legs stuck fast in silt. The boiling water, thick as blood, a bitter brew, has turned them all to salt. Thank you. This one is after a painting called Pishak, or Drunkard, by Josef Kapchek. I call the poem Man Smoking. He was fleshy as a toadstool, blond and plump, loved his brandy, lived in a well-appointed suite with many windows. One day, he slung a gun over his shoulders, went to war. When he returned, his eyes shifted like birds starting at loud sounds. He sold his furniture, moved to a town where he knew no one, renting a narrow set of rooms, all angles. He took up absinthe and cheap cigars. Soon his ruddy hue had faded to a yellow outline, bright as police tape, marking the site of accidents or violent crimes. A demolished house, haunt of broken banisters, sagging wallpaper. He collapsed in on himself, skinned the blue of fog over a swamp. One day, the gun spoke out one loud last word. A wisp of smoke rose in the blue room. Then he was gone, just gone. This next few poems they're not from this book. This one I put in a hybrid collection that isn't quite finished yet. The poem's called The Gray Tree, 1912, and it has, that's a painting by Pete Mondrian, and it has an epigraph from Mondrian. Everything is expressed through relationships. When a tree in winter stands alone against a field of white and gray bereft of leaves, it's easier to see what's underneath its spring and summer spangles, or fall's showy hues to the branches, so unlike the fretwork, so like the fretwork of veins and bones beneath my human skin. This web of light, network of lines and arcs, teaches me to see the tree has never truly stood alone. Mondrian couldn't have known how trees send signals through tangles of mycelium, nourish their saplings, sing to the grass. Yet here we see the world as trees must see it, light feathering the air, falling to the frozen earth. This is the last poem, and the artworks are taken from Shackleton's photographs of Shackleton's uh, trip and his ship, the Endurance, his fateful trip. Um, they didn't exactly get there in one piece, though they got there. And uh, the artworks were inspired by my poem, which was inspired by a radio documentary about Shackelford and his trip to Antarctica. So it's really acrostic in several ways. To be continued. Today is not the end of the world. In the pantry, a white splinter of onion, like a narwhal, charting its Arctic course, twists toward the light. I think of stout Shackleton and his endurance, how he crossed Antarctica but lost his ship in 1914. A world bereft of color, where the eyes starved and the body too. How did they spend 2 years adrift on ice, given up for lost, to return at last as though Odysseus had come again to Ithaca with all his crew? The frozen ocean took almost a year to upend the wooden ship, last of its kind. They packed their stores in lifeboats that would be their world, taking the heavy photographic plates, our record of those years. For all the loneliness, they never were alone. A pod of orca in pursuit of seals once tore through the ice, encountered them, no doubt in mutual surprise. Emperor penguins shuffled across ice fields, eggs balanced on their feet. Sometimes the sun would rise and set 3 times before the end of day, if ending has a meaning in this place. And all the elements that had seemed kind conspired to kill. Even spring, melting the floes that served them for a home, turned loose what they had deemed solid, each step likely to become their last. The southern lights must have rung the stars with its magnetic charge, but did they even hear that, nestled deep inside their fur-lined bags? There is no easy ending. The world goes on, and somewhere, even now, new worlds are being born or found or made, deep in space or in the body's fastness, or freed from under ice. Thank you. And I forgot to tell you that the artworks for that last poem were by Ira Joel Haber.
Exquisite, absolutely exquisite. Thank you, Robbie. And I'd like
Thank you
everybody
so
to
much.
unmute right now to thank our two wonderful featured poets. I'm so glad this was recorded, Robbie and Barry. Please feel free to compliment them too much.
That's so fabulous. Oh,
I,
wow.
I enjoyed your
Mhm.
poems, Barry. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Wow.
Yeah. Bell ringing poetry here on Saturday afternoon.
We appreciate you listening.
Absolutely. And I put in the information about my book in case you want to order it. It's
That's
easy
right.
to
It's in the
get
chat,
almost
people.
everywhere. Yeah. Thank you so much. Does
Uh,
anybody have any questions?
we don't usually have a Q&A, but we still have another half of the program to go. Um, Nevertheless, I'll underline it. Uh, this is being recorded, and that means there will be a section underneath the recording that provides the chat. So if you don't get information to get their books now, you can always go to the YouTube video, and the information will be there. Okay, just want you to feel assured. All right, we know. Change hats.
I have a comment for Robbie.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Robert.
So
Thank
I participate in submissions which link text pieces and visual art. And one of the ways that it can be made easier for the person to put them together is, for example, my local writers group, the Rehoboth Beach Writers Guild, has an event called Art in the AM where three visual images are presented, and then three writers in advance offer to write 300 words to the piece, and then we get together and the writers read what they wrote, and then the artist speaks for about 3 minutes about their work. So that way it's already linked together. But there are many magazines which I submit to as a visual artist where the editor is going to link a text piece to it, and it could be months or never linked.
Yeah,
So
that's true. Well, there are very few journals that publish ekphrastic poems with their images. There's the Ekphrastic Review, the Lights Ekphrastic, Thimble, um, and McQueen's Quinterly, and that's about it, really, that I can think of. There aren't too
And
many.
Fort Feathers Press,
Oh, okay.
if the images are
There you go.
provided, of course.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I think we're going to see
that's the
some of that
sticky.
today. We're going to see some of that. So
Cool.
strap in, people. Uh, 43 people were published in this current online edition, and we've got a small sampling of them here today. So I think maybe the most efficient way I can do this is to just go put their names in the search engine rather than scroll through everything. Although it is kind of fun to scroll through everything. Yeah, I'm kind of divided. Let's try entering a name. I'm going to start with Hetty Hobber. Let's see if this works. And it does. Okay, Hetty, which poem would you like to read?
I'll read the third one.
Okay, let me give you a little larger type here.
Yeah, I was gonna just say
How's that?
a little larger.
A little larger? You got it.
Uh,
Bam.
yeah, that will be okay. But it's the third one, not the first one.
Oh, the third one. Okay, gotcha. Okay, speed readers, get to it. Mm. There we go.
Okay, the title is tea at Chipol's. We ate stengels at Chipol's, twisted breads sprinkled with coarse salt, clinging to our lips. We could see the sea enfolding us through the tall bay windows of the semicircular Swiss tea house. You described a Phoenician tale just for me, how the mountain slopes reddened each spring with Adonis's blood, how his delicate flower, truly and duly Lebanese, has come to be called a red poppy, an anemone with all its melodious variations, al-khushkhash, una amapola, un coquelicot, ed anche un papavero. We walked through a field scattered with red poppies, bright as when Ishtar sprinkled nectar on her beloved's blood. Time seemed elastic then, space infinite. I wished to bring home a handful of scarlet light, to keep the softness of its wrinkled petals alive a while longer. The moment I cut Adonis's flower, hanging like a broken limb, its corolla fell over my hand, head too heavy with dreams. No wonder blossoms tremble on their fragile stem. Sometimes love is only real when not uprooted. Isn't there a geography of every emotion? Not a precious, intricate carte du tendre, but a trail of forgotten footsteps mapping every heartbeat, every motion? A stairwell, a car, a booth, a parking lot, a street light, a gateway, an old-fashioned reverbère, a bus stop, or maybe a tree stump, a moss-covered path, a pond, a small creek, a flat stone, a hill, a porch, or even a wooden bench. Take the poppy, for instance. It will only breathe and give joy at its birthplace. I can still feel the small flower melting into liquid silk in my palm. Like a morning kiss, while you kept telling how Ishtar, or as some may say, Astarte, often mistaken for Isis, was truly her Phoenician incarnation, before she was ever called Aphrodite or Venus. I remember how you talked and talked until we both stepped into Ishtar's temple.
Wow. Pablo Neruda
Thank
Prize
you.
finalist. Yeah. Way to go, Hetty. Okay. Next up, R. A.
Okay.
It's going to be
And just a word of warning, uh, it, the signal has been a little bit wonky, so hopefully I won't disappear halfway through.
so far so good.
Um, I'm going to read the second one.
Second one.
Yeah. Atai. Sometimes I wish he had not awakened the dragon heart in me. Although I admit of being an accomplice to opening the cave and blowing gently on the embers to give them life. The cold feels more acute in my solitude than it used to, even while I am braced by the winds as I fly again, spreading my wings in the currents high above the mundane and muffled cave I sheltered in too long. Somewhere in my ancestry, dragon loved eagle, and now I, wild, joyful progeny, balance on the clouds, the cliffs, the caves, all my home. I do not know if I am first or last, or only of my kind. I still wait for one to match me wing to sky.
Ooh-wee. Oh, R.A., maker of the killer last lines. Multiple
Thank you.
award-winning Four Feathers Press poet. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And speaking of multiple award-winning Four Feathers Press poets, Ellen, maybe.
Hi, thank you. Wow, thank you.
Okay. You can read all three. That's the haiku rule.
Okay, thank you. Mine melodies. I love musicals. I thrive on the emotions, so relatable. Romance between the lines. Love is scattered here amidst the musical notes, thoroughly timeless. Stages of musical therapy. Broadway eternal. Love songs sift into our ears, clearing out the pain. Thank you.
I think you got a double theme going on here. That's fantastic, Ellen. Thank you. Quite the
Thank you.
talented poet. If you don't know Ellen Mabey, get to know her.
Oh,
Okay,
thanks.
Tammy Smith.
Hi.
Hi, Tammy.
Love. Oh, I'll wait till you bring it up.
All right. Got this thing on big Zoom here, so that's why it took so long to get to your name.
Love conditional. My first memory of our marriage is a grammar lesson. Possessives, conditionals. If you were mine, you would do everything I say. 20 years later, I tell myself, no regrets. The lie my father handed down, the one your mother called love. I'm wrong. Your sinister grin settles in my son's cheeks. My son, not ours. He doesn't belong to you. Even 3 years dead, the rot of your morning breath burns against my face. Your last memory of our marriage is a legal lesson. No contact, stay away.
Hmm. Hmm. Tammy, believe it or not, you speak for many. You do, unfortunately. But wow. Way to write. Way to write. Dean.
Well,
Dean's won some Four Feathers Press Awards as well. Okay, so how to handle this? Which one do you want, Dean?
Um, you could just go
Okay,
by the first two. I'll read the third one.
okay, yeah, I'll scroll real slow past the first two because they're really well done. You do such a great job. This one, I love what you did with it. Oh, yeah, go to
Yeah,
the
it's kind
website,
of
people.
that was fun.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Okay. And I don't really call myself an artist. I feel like an art director because I tell these tools to do things for me and it comes out like this. So this one's called The Expanse of Love. The expanse of love, like ringing bell sounds, covers the hills. Love grows from seeds of invitation pushed into fertile intimacies. Love matures, becomes a bridge of support. So we can move between islands of joy and unimaginable pain. The bridge is challenged as parts can fail, but the bow does not break.
Hmm.
Thank, thank you.
I could have sworn that was you in the picture.
Well, I'll tell you because you're here. Yeah, I
Yeah.
took my own picture, and I said,
Yeah.
"Oh God, that didn't look good enough." And so I said, "Take out the mustache, get rid of all the
Oh,
white hair, kind of give it like a cloudy touch on the top, and my
oh,
glasses. Oh, give me some good glasses." So it was me, but several
wow.
revisions later, it turned into this. So. But that's what my granddaughter does. She did that thing like 10 years ago where they take their picture and then the phone morphs it. So it's nothing new.
Oh, to enhance a photo, so to speak. Right.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Well, that really worked. That really worked. Okay, Heather's time. Oh my gosh. I hope I got that right.
I'm still muted. Now I'm
Yes,
unmuted.
yes, yes.
Which one should I read?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll just read this one, the first one.
You can.
Okay. How do you leave the city that gave you your name, circa 2020, for San Francisco? You found me in tatters, beyond tatters, because my shreds didn't even know they belonged inside a body. When you found me, I mourned everything, from feathers that flew off of birds to spiders I cleaned out of the safety of their webs. I thought that we would grow old together, you and I. It was in your hills I realized I could heal, that I was a person entitled to life. It was through the screeches of muni buses and sandy winds that I realized I had senses, that I was entitled in as many words as I wanted to describe the visceral flowings of emotion. How do you leave the city that gave you life, the city that never grew sick of you, the city that told you, more so than anywhere else, that you belong? How do you leave the city that gave you your name? I wrote of jasmine-scented walks guiding me home, and fog so thick I couldn't see the turn onto Portola, heading over Twin Peaks. I wrote of drizzles and steel drums, birth and separation. I wrote of names, umbilical cords, tasting of meatballs, and losing one's faith and being okay with it. Leaving you feels like leaving my words behind, the poem portraits I formed. Leaving you feels like losing my name. I search for metaphors of growth in my mind. I think of nests and hatched birds, pollen blowing off of flowers. I wonder if this is what it feels like to have a name that you don't need to leave behind, that will follow. I know that if I get to keep my name, then I will get to keep my words. If I get to keep my words, then I get to keep you as inspiration. As such, I thank you for naming me. I thank you for making me something capable of giving life and naming things. Thank you.
You are the queen of resonance. And an award-winning poet with for this press, to say the least. Chapbook of the year. Who's next? Robert. Yes, Robert Fleming, our visual artist. Okay, Robert, you can do all three. That's the visual
Okay.
rule.
Will you maximize them? The
Oh,
image?
I already have it at 175%, so this is the best I
Okay,
can do.
let's just go with that. Okay,
Yeah, that's
so
pretty
I
good.
chose to focus on subjects other than humans for love. So I chose the first one is sheep love. So 2 summers ago, I went to the Delaware State Fair and found the love of my life, this white sheep. And it was love at first sight. So we can go to the next picture.
Okay, thank you, Robert. That's great. Great. Oh, my.
And this was in 2015 when I bought my last car, a Honda Fit. I purchased it from CarMax and they put it in a bow for me. And then when I saw the bow on the car, I fell in love with my car.
Yeah.
And we can go down. This is the last one. This is called Money Love. So in 2016, I was a guest traveler on the Queen Mary ship, and I entered the blackjack contest. You can see my name was the fourth one down. So I qualified and I won the competition. I think it was nearly $1,000. And the key for winning the competition is getting to pick the seat which plays last, because at the last hand you can see how much everybody is betting and know how much you need to bet.
Sounds like Jeopardy.
Yes, that's the most important
Yeah.
thing, is getting the last seat. And the techniques for editing these photos were the simple techniques. They were cutting out parts of the photo that isn't needed, called cropping. I also added a little lighting to it, but those were the only two photo editing techniques I used: cropping and lighting. And those are my three loves: sheep, car, and money.
It's good to love. All right. Looking forward to our next poet, Jim Lewis. Hope everybody knows Jim. Editor extraordinaire, Jim Lewis.
Let's do the third poem.
You got it.
Since life needs a little humor, let me help you with that. So the discussion turned to darkness and her inability to sleep when light chases the dark, or flickers, or flares, or slides through the curtains in any manner. And I asked her if she'd ever tried a blindfold, the functional block out the light kind. And of course she had, and it didn't work for one reason or another. Who knows? She says she just uses a pillow as needed, pulls it across her head and face until the light is blocked, but breathing is not. And I suddenly had a flashback to television, and not a few movies where the cause of death was suffocation by pillow. Not overly messy, usually no fingerprints, and so on. So I joked, you'd be pretty easy to get rid of. And who would know it was me, or something like that. At which she laughed and suggested that if I were planning anything, perhaps she should have some input because, quote, it needs to be done right and it isn't worth doing, and you always need help with details, end quote. And because she loves me so much, she calmly added, and I wouldn't want you to go to jail. Friends, I ask you one and all, where could I ever find another woman who loves me like that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, talk about double indemnity. Well, okay, I think we reached that portion of the program. Yes, we have, where I get to be self-indulgent. Normally, when we scroll, I know we're getting to the end when this name pops up. And it's still true. Okay, Kingfisher, which poem do you want to read? I really hadn't thought about it. Yeah, I'm speed reading. Okay, I'm speed reading. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, this one's a technique, so I'll do this one. Hey gang, need a poem on the spot. All you have to do is look around you and make a list of the 10 things that are in your nearby vicinity, like I did. And then, of course, you need to be extremely lazy because, as Benjamin Franklin once said, laziness is a sign of genius. So I took these 10 words and used them in order. I just hoped the muses would be kind to me. It's called Through My Glasses I Can See. Why? I joyously take out my wallet to buy you a flamingo globe to remember. I never want us to be anywhere near remote. I'd rather be the one who asks if you need napkins when I'm in CVS using my cell phone for coupons. Back home, I sit on dining room chair with you across the table where you lay down food made with love and happily toss into the trash basket my leavings. I tip my hard hat to you for making my life too. That concludes our sampling of Four Feathers Press online edition Love, which will be here after we're all long gone if electronics continue beyond our lives. Thanks so much for being here, people. Next week, we're going to the Lamanda Park Branch Library in Pasadena to celebrate the second issue of Turtle Island Poetry. And if you haven't had a chance to submit to Turtle Island Poetry, please do, because Turtle Island Poetry is aiming to publish as many people as possible. Is that a crazy idea? I don't know. I'm not sure that's a good idea, but it seems to be working so far. So I'm just going to continue because I want poets to read poets, you know?
And
A
those
little,
who can't get to the library because they're like a continent away, um,
oh yeah, yeah. I was going to
uh,
bring that up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We do have an online version of that too, hosted by Rose.
so
No, it's not happening in the same place. You know, it's like it's two separate readings at the same time. Do you follow?
yeah. So basically, you just log
Yeah,
in
you
here,
can. You
and
can be
I'll have the
there or be
PDF,
there.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we can read. Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.